He's talking about this like like he's so great at just bringing the masses together. But when you look at their like public events, when they go out and have a little rally, and it's just them standing there, 5 or 6 white guys with one bullhorn and a bunch of American flags. Seriously. And nobody is going anywhere near them because everybody sees white guy, bad suit, bullhorn, and they think, okay, this guy's about to talk to me about sodomy. Can it possibly be more cringe than his video about, than that fucking cartoon of his? There we go.
Our country has become more prosperous for many, but in the name of that wealth, we cannot justify our system as a center for the world's values when we continue to create such war and chaos in the world.
Who is this speaking? That voice is not familiar to me. If you're just joining, we are looking at the official trailer of the Cult for Political Innovation. Caleb Maupin's little ego organization.
It's kind of like putting a pebble in somebody's shoe. It's one you plant.
I mean, okay, so the idea is that Caleb Maupin is annoying?
That little idea that maybe the system's not so right, maybe something's wrong, and they'll...
This is how you can tell when people are just totally fucking alienated from, like, the working class. Because they think because they think working class people need to be told that the system sucks. Look at the polls. Most of them already get that the system sucks. That's not a new thing. People have been thinking that the system sucks for fucking decades. For longer than most of the motherfuckers in this organization have been alive. That's not the difficulty. Thinking the system sucks is common coin. The problem is convincing people that something can actually be done about it, and, you know, that your ideas about it have merit. And people don't need to be told the system's... If you're talking to people who don't get that the system sucks, you're probably talking to people the system doesn't suck for. And that's a really odd choice if you're trying to be a revolutionary organization, which they like to cosplay as.
They'll have that pebble in their shoe, and the longer they walk on it, they'll realize there's something wrong. This is something uncomfortable. It's getting worse and worse, and that's how you reach people.
Imperialism is not a policy. Imperialism is not when you send troops into a country. Imperialism is not the same thing as colonialism. Imperialism is an economic system.
Like, this is the trailer. This is supposed to be the summary of what this organization is about. And so far it is disjointed as fuck. And also, imperialism isn't an economic system so much as it is an expression of an economic system. And it's worth noting that in his book that claims that BreadTube is a CIA psyop, he says that he uses the term imperialism as a synonym to globalism, with the 3 parentheses around it.
Imperialism is capitalism in its monopoly stage. Vladimir Lenin wrote a very important book called Imperialism.
It's a very important book. God, I mean, he talks to everybody. The more I watch this guy, the more I am convinced that he is trying to channel the spirit of all the most annoying junior high vice principals who ever lived. It's a very important book, people. It's a very important... You gotta pay attention, people. Now, let's remember that the last time we saw him, he was talking about how cool it was that a billionaire by the name of Jim Rogers wanted to invest in the DPRK. Like, yeah, which apparently has nothing to do with imperialism. Well, unless you read that book, which he clearly fucking hasn't.
Highest stage of capitalism. Imperialism is an economic system where countries around the world are kept poor so that Wall Street and London can stay rich.
The process of establishing...
There are capitalists outside of Wall Street, and he doesn't know that London and the City of London are two separate political entities. That's so cute. He does not know that the City of London is actually a completely separate thing from London. It has its own government. It has its own fucking representation in Parliament because it has been considered a separate entity by law for centuries. Conclusion. The process of establishing the foundations of peace in our lifetime is not simply a matter of convenience, but rather it is indeed a matter of necessity. Okay. It is those who have a theory and those who strive for action. Strive for action. They not necessarily do any action, but you strive for the action. You try to have actions. Who will change the course of human events.
The foundations of peace in our lifetime is not simply a matter of convenience, but rather it is indeed a matter of necessity. This is our historical material responsibility as communists in the United States. I want to say this again. This is our historical material responsibility as communists in the United States.
These people do not know how to edit a montage. This is just so badly edited. This, you can tell that as utterly cringy and ridiculous as that fucking cartoon was, that he has been so comprehensively roasted for using. At the very least, somebody who knows something about filmmaking was involved in it because the editing was reasonably good. This is all these repetitions and shit, you've already lost people. You're doing a trailer, it's supposed to just be a summary of what you're all about. And this is snippets of lectures that I didn't want to be at. And then you have them repeating themselves. This is shitty editing. There should be a narrative flow in this. Like a montage. Here's where we these images should flow, and the sounds, the music, and whatever that goes with it should flow as well, and create a sequence of ideas. That's what we're talking about. That's what you do with some kind of trailer or something like that, to give people the broad strokes of what something is all about. And what this does not flow. This is the most viscous fucking trailer I've ever watched.
States. It is those who have a theory and those who strive for action who will change the course of human events.
In the United States, we often hear jokes, people all over the world, and I think we do it ourselves, where Americans are so dumb, Americans are so ignorant, Americans don't know geography, and...
Okay, again, what's this for? This is supposed to be the trailer. We haven't even heard the name of the fucking organization. I'm giving this guy filmmaking tips now. That's how far we have sunk. I'm giving this guy fucking filmmaking tips.
I don't think that any people, any nationality is inherently dumb or not. I think that the American working class has been robbed of education. We've been robbed of knowing different parts of the world. It's so much so that we've been robbed of our own history. An ignorant population.
Oh, okay. That's a bit telling on themselves. Because see, Oliver Stone's Untold History of the United States. Not all the legit. Yeah. This fucking link spam. Shit. Bye. Yeah, not into the link spam. I had this exact same, spam bot earlier today on my other stream, just a different name. What I was saying was, see, you could use, I don't know, if you wanted to use something that was kind of consistent with this message that actually people in the U.S. have occasionally, working people in the U.S. have occasionally done some really pog shit in resisting, you know, capitalism, imperialism, or whatever, which seems to be the idea. I mean, like, fucking Howard Zinn's A People's History would be a place you could go, except that, and instead he goes for Oliver Stone, who is, oh, I'm not, this is, yeah, you don't get to advertise that shit on my VOD. I'm rebooting the chat window just to get rid of that crap. The guy who is just all sorts of just anti-Semitic or borderline anti-Semitic far-right conspiracy bullshit. Oliver Stone.
Is a submissive population. It is the best way to, you know, keep us in the dark, keep us individualistic, non-communitarian, and therefore we'll never question, we'll never rise up, we'll just consume whatever they feed us. And unfortunately, a lot of the American left...
See, that's actually, all of a sudden we've got some reasonable montage going on here. It's like somebody who knew something about putting a series of images in order to convey a theme had something to do with this video, but for some reason they were only allowed to look at like 15 seconds of it.
Left has also fed into that. They don't want to talk about the history of, you know, the great worker struggles that have happened in this country.
What leftists don't want to talk about the great workers' struggles that are in this country? I mean, there is shit named, there are like leftist publishers named after some of the more iconic worker struggles in this country, like fucking Haymarket. I mean, all sorts of shit. I mean, there's fucking commemorations of that. I mean, there are... The idea that leftists don't want to talk about U.S. history, and particularly the areas of history that involve resistance to this, like, horrible capitalist slave state, you know, and settler colonialism and all that shit. I mean, that's just wild to be claiming that. I mean, but what it comes down to is that most of them will not try to give it the pat sock treatment. Because the thing is that, I mean, leftist histories of the United States are not going to generally be patriotic ones, because that would be fucking bullshit. I mean, I would go so far to say as I wouldn't recognize it as a leftist history of the United States if it was patriotic. Because being, like, nationalist in favor of a fucking settler colonial regime like the United States, there's nothing really leftist about that. That's the sort of ideology that you need to be shedding when you start the path towards, you know, leftism or whatever.
Great resistors. To be revolutionaries, to love your people, to have that, you know, revolutionary love. Che Guevara said that he was once jealous of the American worker because we have the greatest fight of all to build socialism within the belly of the beast. And we need to have a care and love for our people that is not nihilistic. Because that's not...
as opposed to, what the hell is... And who is our people exactly? Who are they talking about when they say our people?
Not gonna win. It hasn't won for the past 70 years. We need to try socialist patriotism, and the way that we do that is not through national nihilism. It's not through these failed ultra-leftist CIA-influenced politics that is so...
Oh, here we go. The Congress for Cultural Freedom. He can't shut up about that.
Popular in the U.S. left. It's about getting back to Marxism, Leninism, and, you know, follow...
Yeah, except, I mean, getting back to Marxism, Leninism. First of all, they have moved so far. Caleb Maupin in particular has moved so far from anything that is recognizable as Marxism, Leninism at this point. Well, the whole thing about, like, fucking pro-U.S. nationalism already, the idea of pretending that Trump is some sort of hero of Korean reunification when all he did was gate crash a summit that the two Korean states had already agreed on and made it impossible for them to actually achieve anything. I mean, I'm not a Marxist-Leninist. I have a lot of disagreements with their entire approach to things, but I recognize Marxism-Leninism when I see it, and this shit ain't it. This is not Marxist-Leninism.
Strategy that's worked everywhere in the world. Again, show me where national nihilism has
What the hell is national nihilism? Define national nihilism first.
successfully produced a revolution, a socialist revolution.
Well, I mean, okay, so the idea is that whatever the hell national nihilism is didn't produce a socialist revolution, but, surely what would produce a socialist revolution would be socialism?
The world is constantly changing, and that most people around the world are good. And I think that people lose sight of that. But I think most people in the world are good. They want to take care of their family. They want to help other people. They have compassion. They have a desire to do
They hold national flags up and sort of grin into cameras.
Kindness. And that most people are motivated by goodness. And that if we, as socialists and Marxists, want to try and build socialism, we need to appeal to the goodness in people. And we need to not appeal to people's...
Well, how are you appealing to the goodness in people, though? When you just create... I mean, all you do is, like, smear people who are actually some kind of leftists. And appeal to anti-Semitism. I mean, it is so weird when he starts... All the shit he does, most of it is just pure, just smearing people who have much more claim to be any kind of principled leftist than he ever has had. I mean, it's wild. He just, anti-Semitic dog whistles all over the place, and, anyone who criticizes him is a CIA psyop, not somebody who might just disagree on some shit. And anyone who does not try to combine nationalism and socialism, because, there might be some history there, I don't know, of those two things not going together very well. Some kind of national socialism might have actually been a bad thing. I don't know. That might be something for them to look into when they're studying their history, since they want to study history. But yeah, this does not feel like appealing to the good. This doesn't even feel like appealing to anything. I mean, this is just... This isn't really appealing.
Jealousy. We need to not appeal to people's desire for revenge or chaos. We need to not appeal to
who's appealing to people's desire for chaos?
Anger and their rage, but we instead need to appeal to the goodness in people. That's my book, City Builders and Vandals in Our Age.
Which appeals to the anti-Semitism in people.
I talk about what I call the city-building tendency, and I go back...
Which completely coincidentally shares an abbreviation with cock and ball torture.
To, Athens. And I talk about, Socrates. I talk about Confucius. I talk about Julius Caesar and his efforts to try and reform the Roman Empire. And that socialism is the constructive side of the human race. And that one of the things...
this is just...
I feel like the left, in a lot of cases, does try to appeal to negative emotions.
Well, first of all, I don't know about the concept of negative emotions to begin with, because, I think it depends on the context and what you do with it. I think I'm guessing he's talking about, anger, but the thing is, anger is something that people feel, and if you want to talk to, if you want to, even seem to people like you're from the same fucking planet as them, you have to actually acknowledge and legitimize their anger when they're legitimately pissed off about something. Telling people to calm down in this fucking junior high vice principal voice. He's talking about this like he's so great at just bringing the masses together, but when you look at their, public events, when they go out and have a little rally, and it's just them standing there, 5 or 6 white guys with one bullhorn and a bunch of American flags, seriously, and nobody is going anywhere near them, because everybody sees white guy, bad suit, bullhorn, and they think, okay, this guy's about to talk to me about sodomy. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here.
To negative, destructive impulses that people have. And I think that's a mistake. Look at every building in the New York City skyline. Look at every great achievement.
Look at this wonderful camera work that is actually making me a little bit sick. Okay.
That's been created. That is human beings coming together, collectively working together.
Okay, the whole point of that right now was to show that placard, which was never even in focus.
Around a common vision to build something beautiful.
Wait, is no, I'm in HD. They decided that this wonderful like blurry, like semi-pixelated image is how they want to present him. I mean, if you're gonna use this, you could just use the audio and put it over something that is visually appealing, as opposed to making everybody think they need to clean their glasses.
We are a progressive species, and we are a collective species. And the problem is...
The hell is a progressive species?
At this point, human beings, we have been infected with the free market, with capitalism, with the system of profits and command. And it's time.
Yeah, see, you basically never hear him just say profits. And there's a reason for that. He's okay with profits. He stands the Chinese capitalism to the hills. He's cool with profits that are substantial enough to result in fucking billionaires. So the idea is not that we're supposed to, not to get rid of capitalism, not to get rid of the profit system altogether. No. The idea is that, I mean, some sort of FDR type bullshit.
Time for human reason and rational thinking to take control. That the word revolution itself, right? The word revolution, it originally referred to the fact that the sun, the earth is revolving around. Right? The Earth revolves around.
This is their introduction. Like, how is this supposed? Who's this supposed to appeal to? He's now talking to you like you didn't know that revolving was also a word for like turning around.
The sun, that's the root of the word. And it was people who didn't go along with the Roman Catholic Church and their belief that the earth was the center of the universe.
Okay, I have a distinct feeling that this is not the root where we get the word revolution etymology. I am fairly certain that that term has been around for much longer than that. Online etymology dictionary. Okay, late 14th century. Okay, it was originally of celestial bodies, one apparent rotation about the Earth. That at the time it wasn't the Earth around the sun, incidentally, because people hadn't actually worked that out. At least not in Europe. It was the idea of everything revolving around the Earth because they were still geocentric. I mean, let me see. Actually, okay. The sense of an instance of great change in affairs is recorded from mid-15th century. The political meaning, overthrow of an established political or social system, is recorded by circa 1600, derived from French, and was especially applied in England to the expulsion of the Stuart dynasty under James II in 1688, and the transfer of sovereignty to William and Mary under a purer constitutional government. So, yeah, okay, he's managed to get all that shit wrong. And this is not off the cuff. He could have checked that out. There is absolutely no stake in this version of things. He could get it right, and all that would be was him getting a thing right. But instead, you know, with all the time,
People who called themselves revolutionaries were the people who believed in science and understood that actually the Earth revolves. That's where the root of the word revolutionary came from.
No, it really isn't. This is totally wrong. The root, the root has absolutely nothing to do. It was literally the opposite. It was, the root was at the period when geocentrism was still completely dominant.
Now, after the events in France in the late 1700s, it became a political term. But
100 years earlier than that, the events in England made it a political term.
Originally, it was a scientific term for how you understood the universe. And that points to the essence of what a revolution is. A revolution is not an act of violence and chaos.
Yeah, see, he says this as if the people who acknowledge that there tends to be violence in a revolutionary period want it to be like that. Like, if there was a way to do it without the violence and still get the exact same outcome, overcome the capitalist system, replace it with something where you have the working class controlling the means of production and production for need, to each according to their needs, from each according to their abilities, and all of that, without a single person getting even punched in the face or whatever, that people would get out of that. And that's bullshit. Like, literally, anyone you talk to who acknowledges that force plays a role in these things will tell you the reason is quite simply that the ruling class doesn't like the idea of being overthrown. And they have a hole, and their ace in the hole is that they've got the means of violence. The state is a monopoly on putatively legitimate violence. And so when you manage to constitute a threat to the power of the ruling class, to the power of their state, then shit gets violent. It's not because people are just like fucking happy to do violence. The fucking fascists from January 6th, who he likes to stand, did seem to be very keen on doing some violence. They'd done quite a bit of it, actually.
A revolution is not an act
not
of
just
destruction.
on January 6th.
Revolution is an understanding that science must be applied to humanity.
Revolution is an understanding that science must be applied to humanity. No, it isn't that. It isn't that. Like, what the hell does that even mean?
And that rational thinking can be applied to society. Society can be reorganized in a rational way. And that is what the word revolution means. The term revolution is about applying science to the human.
He hasn't, they haven't even said the name of the CPI once in this thing. We're 626 deep into an 8-minute and 30-second video. And the Center for Political, his fucking cult, has not been named. It's just, people making random reflections as we look at images that don't sometimes seem to have some kind of context.
Human condition. And that's what the Center for Political Innovation aims to do, to apply science, scientific thinking.
Oh, wow, we got the fucking name of the organization in there. Good job there. Only 6.5 minutes in. Hello, chat. If you're just joining now, we're looking at the official trailer of the Cult for Political Innovation, and it's not very good.
To how we can get out of this crisis. Socialism.
Like, did they have editors?
Is a move.
Oh, here he goes using the section of the Communist Manifesto, like one of the only things by Marx he's ever read, that Marx and Engels specifically distanced themselves from after the fucking Paris Commune failed. After the Paris Commune was crushed, they went back and said, yeah, I mean, if we'd written this knowing that, this section would have been totally different.
Movement dedicated to having all society take control of the major centers of economic power, having the banks, factories, and major industries organized to serve the people, and not simply...
Wait a second, that's not what it says. Like, why, if you're gonna just completely contradict that, why not just not show it? Because what it specifically says directly contradicts his entire, like, stated objective. After the productive forces have also increased with the all-around development of the individual, and all the springs of cooperative wealth flow more abundantly, only then can the narrow horizon of... from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. And of course, this is in the context of the working class controlling production, which he opposes. I mean, at the very least, I mean, there's no two ways about it. He opposes it. He just wants the state to run things. As long as the state's running things, he's kind of cool. He doesn't really care how the state does it, as long as...
Factories and major industries organized to serve the people, and not simply the profits of the big multinational corporations and bankers who own them. It is about putting the people first and eliminating the rule of profits. And the goal of socialism is not to have a total government domination of the population. It's not to build an authoritarian police state. It is the opposite.
Except that, I mean, he's actually said elsewhere, when he was in the little conference with Russian and French fascists, including Alexander Dugin, he actually said what got him into leftism was watching revolutionary armies goose-stepping on parade.
The goal of socialism.
And if your argument is, I'm pretty sure that's Shanghai. If you're trying to say we're not trying to make create an authoritarian state, then why are you showing us like the fucking Chinese cityscapes? Because look, I mean, one thing that you really cannot say about China is that it's not a pretty authoritarian state. I mean, whatever you think about, like, there were, like, economic and social achievements, which are, many, which are real. I mean, it would be silly not to say that they aren't authoritarian. They kind of are. They're pretty high on the authoritarian scale. I don't believe in, like, this simple binary. I think authoritarian, when you use it as this binary the way liberals do, because liberals make language bad. They make terminology useless. As if there's, like, authoritarian states, and it's always states the United States government doesn't like, and then the other ones. And that's just a meaningless thing. I mean, what you need... Authoritarianism is a useful concept if you're using it as a scale. That there are systems that are more authoritarian than other systems, and systems that are less authoritarian, and it just sort of moves along the line. Like, the US is more authoritarian than a lot of places, less authoritarian than some, just to give an example. Then it can be a useful term of analysis.
But not like this. Society that is so prosperous and so abundant, in which there is so much wealth and prosperity, that the very...
So prosperous, and it has prosperity.
...need for all government can fade away.
Yeah, which is not how any of that works.
In which there can be so much material abundance that people can live on the basis from each according to his own ability to each according to his needs.
Yeah, except, again, not how that works, because the thing is, there is no level of abundance, of productivity, where there isn't a very clear advantage in controlling the result of that production. It just doesn't exist. As long as there is some concentration of power, as long as there's a state, as long as there is some sort of ruling class other than the working class, somebody will always have an interest in monopolizing that production and preventing communism. So it's not just gonna fucking fade away. You're always gonna have to fight him for it.
Want to end, since I just told you that revolution has a very different meaning than what
Yes, and he doesn't know what it is.
we're told. Now that I've explained the real meaning of the word revolution, I want to end the way I end all my lives by reciting a very, very important statement, one of the final statements of Chairman Mao Zedong, the author of the Little Red Book.
Just in case you didn't know who Mao Zedong is. Like, I mean, he just thinks that the people who are watching him know nothing.
He said,
Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers
God, this guy is so red you could, like, put him on a stick and wave him on May Day.
have been continuously launching wars of aggression.
The people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression.
Hey, God, this is just so visually compelling.
While the danger of a new world war still exists, the people of
We get to see his nostrils.
all countries must get prepared. Revolution is the main trend in the world today.
Like, how could you watch this and even come away with the impression that the CPI, that even the CPI knows what the CPI is about, apart from just being an ego vehicle for fucking Caleb Muppet?